Blade Runner Flash, Midsouth Sting. Black leather, flat top haircut, Road Warrior style face paint, and a tag partner who'd eventually become the Ultimate Warrior. Before he was Sting, he was Flash, one half of the Blade Runners, a jacked-up, wild-looking tag team in Bill Watts' Mid-South Wrestling. They were stiff, green, and reckless. But they looked like action figures come to life. It didn't last. Warrior left. But Sting stayed and continued to try things with his character. He started tagging with Rick Steiner, and by the end of 1986, he was already holding the UWF tag titles. This wasn't Sting as we know him, but it was the first glimpse of a legend mastering the art of evolution. Surfer Sting. Then came the neon. Face painted in hot pinks and electric blues, jacket with tassels. This was Surfer Sting, the ultimate late 80s, early 90s babyface. He looked like a superhero dropped into pro wrestling, and with Ric Flair as his main rival, Sting was catapulted to the top of WCW almost instantly. The moment that made him, Clash of the Champions 1, a 45-minute draw with Flair that aired head-to-head with WrestleMania 4. That match didn't just show he could hang, it made him the face of the company. In 1990, Sting finally beat Flair to win the NWA World title in front of a massive crowd at the Great American Bash. This version of Sting was WCW's moral compass. He was bright, bold, and always on the side of good. But as the wrestling world got darker, so did he. Crow Sting. By 1996, the landscape had shifted. The NWO was running wild, Hogan had gone heel, and WCW's storylines were turning grittier by the week. Sting, once the loud, colourful saviour, went silent. Inspired by the Crow movie, he re-emerged in black and white face paint, a long leather trench coat, and with absolutely no words. He wasn't cutting promos. He wasn't wrestling weekly. He'd show up in the rafters, stare down the ring, and disappear. The bat became an extension of his body. And for over a year, WCW built anticipation without giving fans the payoff. It finally came at Starrcade 97, where Crow Sting faced Hollywood Hogan in one of the most hyped matches in company history. But the finish was a disaster. A fast count that wasn't fast, followed by a restart and a messy title win. Still, the moment cemented the aura of Crow Sting. Wolfpac Sting. Then things got red. In 1998, the NWO split in two. Hollywood NWO in black and white, and the Wolfpac in red and black. And Sting suddenly joined the Wolfpac. He repainted his face in red and black, walked out to the Wolfpac's bass-heavy theme song. He was talking again, smiling again. It was a vibe shift. He feuded with Bret Hart and continued the war against Hollywood Hogan's faction. Wolfpac Sting was cool, but it was fleeting. And once the NWO angle lost steam, so did this version. Heel Sting. Now here's a version people forget about. In 1999, WCW took a risk and turned Sting heel. He started to cut some promos without the iconic face paint. Came to the ring in all leather black attire. No smiles, no crowd pandering, and no hesitation to beat someone down with a bat. Heel Sting was more intense, more cold. But the run didn't stick. WCW's booking at the time was all over the place. For a few months in '99, the icon became the villain. Late WCW Sting. By the time WCW hit the 2000s, everything was chaos. And Sting? He was back in his classic Crow look, but he was dropped into some of the weirdest, most unstable creative in wrestling history. There was the feud with Vampiro, where he was literally set on fire and buried alive. There was also the fake Sting storylines, convoluted interference angles, and a lot of segments where Sting felt like a main character in a script with no direction. He'd feud with guys like Jeff Jarrett and Scott Steiner, and while the matches were fine, the momentum was gone. The final moment of this version? WCW's last episode, March 2001. Sting versus Ric Flair. No titles, no big stakes, just two legends closing the book on a company they helped build. They hugged afterward. And that was it. Late WCW Sting wasn't about reinvention. It was about loyalty. He stayed with the ship, even as it sank. The icon TNA Sting. When WCW folded, Sting didn't go to WWE. He vanished for years. And when he finally returned, it was in TNA. Sting debuted in 2003, then came back full-time in 2006. In TNA, he had feuds with Jeff Jarrett, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, and AJ Styles. He won the NWA World title, then the TNA World Heavyweight title. He kept evolving. Sometimes his paint had silver or red. Sometimes he leaned religious in his promos. Sometimes he stood for the young guys. Other times he sided with the veterans. But through it all, he was the legend in the room. He brought legitimacy to TNA's rise in the mid to late 2000s from fans and from wrestlers around the world. A respected icon, and still able to go. Main Event Mafia Sting. In 2008, Sting joined forces with Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, Booker T, and Scott Steiner to form the Main Event Mafia. They wore suits, cut smug promos, dominated TNA's main event scene, and Sting, he went full heel. No face paint, no mysterious aura, just cold logic and authority. This was Sting like you'd never seen him. A disciplinarian, a locker room gatekeeper, a heel who believed he deserved respect. Not just because of who he was, but because of what today's wrestlers weren't. Eventually, the group fell apart. Sting clashed with Kurt Angle and was kicked out of the Mafia. But a few years later, in 2013, he brought the group back, this time to battle the rising biker faction Aces and Eights. Even then, his return to the Mafia came with symbolism, no paint, all business. It was Sting at his most serious. Not spooky, not theatrical, just legacy-driven dominance. Joker Sting. In between all of that, Sting tried on something else. In 2011, he flipped the entire script. He ditched the Silent Crow routine and the corporate mafia gig and reinvented himself again. This time as a maniacal, unhinged wildcard. Face paint smeared like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. Offbeat laughing promos, paranoia, jokes, taunts. It was chaos on purpose. He set his sights on Immortal, a heel faction led by Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. But instead of fighting fire with stoicism, he fought fire with insanity. He'd wander the halls talking to himself, cut deranged promos with that twisted smile. Even in his 50s, Sting could still grab attention like no other. Joker Sting only lasted about a year, but it worked, and it showed he was still willing to take creative risks that most guys his age wouldn't even consider. WWE Sting. For over a decade, fans asked the same question. When is Sting going to WWE? In 2014, it finally happened. Sting debuted at Survivor Series, walking into a WWE ring for the first time ever. Same black trench coat, same crow paint. But now, the lights were brighter, the crowd was louder, and the stakes felt enormous. And then, WWE blew it. At WrestleMania 31, Sting faced Triple H in a match that had one job: let the legend shine. Instead, it turned into a bizarre nostalgia brawl with DX and the NWO running in. And Sting lost. Then came his match with Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. It was physical, it was fast, and it ended in disaster. Sting took a powerbomb into the turnbuckle, collapsed mid-match, and never wrestled in WWE again. No title run, no Undertaker match, no redemption arc. Just a brief, mistimed run that didn't live up to the moment fans waited 15 years for. AEW Sting. Then came the comeback that nobody saw coming. In 2020, at 61 years old, Sting walked into AEW and felt more Sting than he had in decades. The look? Still Crow. The music? Dark and theatrical with falling snow during his entrance. The reaction? Massive. He was paired with Darby Allin, not as a prop, but as a partner, a mentor, a threat. Sting took bumps, did dives, went through tables, and for nearly 4 years, never lost a match. He wasn't mailing it in, he was rewriting the final chapter. And in 2024, at AEW Revolution, Sting officially retired after teaming with Darby to beat the Young Bucks. Title belts raised, career complete. And this time, it was on his terms. AEW gave Sting the one thing he didn't have, a real ending. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and join the channel as a member to help support me and keep the channel going. It really means a lot. Thanks.